An ocean where the impossible happens. This is the North Atlantic. Here whales sing within the silence of the abyss, while volcanoes rise from the deep, shaping new lands in an eternal dialogue between fire and ice. But what do we truly know about this mysterious ocean? The North Atlantic is not just a geographical border, it is a boundary between worlds, a territory of forces that challenge human logic, where the planet breathes, creates, and renews itself before our eyes. Welcome to the ocean North Atlantic, where whales and volcanoes create impossible worlds. Between Iceland and Greenland, where the cold cuts through the wind and lava sketches the coastline, lies one of the greatest concentrations of energy on the planet. More than 4,000 meters deep, temperatures that reach 30 degrees below zero, and active volcanoes capable of forming new islands within hours. But the North Atlantic is also home to giants that cross entire oceans, to birds that defy storms, and to ecosystems that reveal the miracle of survival. In today's documentary, here on our planet, you will discover how fire and life coexist in one of the wildest and most beautiful places on Earth. Have you ever imagined witnessing a volcano being born beneath the sea, or hearing the song of a whale in waters covered with ice? Nature here does not merely exist, it speaks. Every sound, every light and every movement tells the story of creation itself. After exploring the secrets of South Africa, where life flourishes between savannas and deserts, the time has come to move beyond the heat, to meet the other extreme of creation, the North Atlantic, where the cold and the fire share the same heart. You who are watching us on TV, check if you are already subscribed here on the channel Our Planet. That way, YouTube will notify you whenever a new documentary reveals the extraordinary around the world. Now take a deep breath. Let the glow of your TV turn the room into a portal and prepare your heart. Because what you are about to see next is not just a documentary. It is an encounter between fire and ocean, a moment capable of changing the way you feel the Earth. The North Atlantic awaits you. The sound comes from the depths, a deep song, distant, an echo that travels for thousands of kilometers, crossing seas, currents, and entire generations. This is how the Atlantic speaks. Humpback whales and orcas rule these cold waters. They are giants with hearts the size of a car that breathe air but live in a world of liquid silence. Each note of their song carries messages that travel across entire oceans. Imagine hearing a song capable of crossing 5,000 kilometers of sea. Humpback whales do this. They communicate through complex sound patterns within frequency ranges so low that our human ears can barely perceive them. But in the ocean, it is a living symphony. Every winter, these whales leave the icy waters of the North Atlantic and travel all the way to the Caribbean to reproduce and nurse their calves. It is a journey of nearly 8,000 kilometers, guided by inherited memories. They follow routes that scientists still struggle to decipher. Orcas, on the other hand, live in family groups that resemble tribes. Each group has its own dialect, a unique set of sounds, understood only among its members. Studies show that these vocal patterns are passed from mother to daughter, like stories told beneath the waves. But not everything is music. The North Atlantic is also a field of challenges. Surface temperatures can drop below 2 degrees Celsius, and even so, these giants dance between the cold and the currents, feeding on shoals that move like silver clouds. Each breath is a reminder that life endures. When a whale surfaces, the jet of mist can reach 10 meters in height. It is the ocean breathing along with her, a simple gesture, yet one that sustains the life of an entire world. Scientists believe that these songs help with navigation during long migrations. They are acoustic maps, invisible guides that connect the oceans. And when sound travels, it also carries the story of the planet, recorded in the vibrations of the water. But there is something science still cannot explain. Why do these beings seem to sing, even when they are alone? Perhaps it is the way the Creator found to remind the earth that it still has a voice. And that voice comes from the depths of the sea. Beneath the waves, the world seems asleep, but within the fractures of the ocean, something moves. Warm currents rise from the deep, as if the planet were breathing. And when they touch the ice, water turns into fire. In that instant, the light changes, the sound grows deeper, and the ocean gains color. It is as if the heart of the earth beats stronger, opening a passage for the birth of something new, an encounter between force and mystery, between fire and the sea. Beneath the North Atlantic, the earth breathes fire. At the invisible boundary of the tectonic plates, the crust splits apart, releasing enough energy to raise entire continents. And every fracture is a reminder that the planet is still alive. Here between Iceland and Greenland runs an underground boundary known as the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a scar that cuts the ocean from north to south. For more than 16,000 kilometers, it is there that fire is born, slowly, as if the heart of the earth pulsed in rhythm with the sea. When magma rises to the surface, it comes into contact with the icy water. The shock creates mineral towers, called black smokers. These are chimneys that expel superheated gases at more than 350 degrees Celsius. And even in this inferno, there is life. Extremophile bacteria survive by feeding on sulfur, turning what would be toxic into energy. It is the miracle of adaptation. These organisms are studied by NASA because perhaps, on distant planets, life began in the same way, in the dark and under pressure. Around these fissures, entire ecosystems take shape. Blind crustaceans, tube worms, and small luminescent fish live in harmony as if they had been shaped for this environment. It is an oasis amid the void, a hidden garden in the abyss. Iceland, a land that rises from this same fire, is the only place on the planet where the mid-Atlantic ridge emerges above sea level. It is a country literally divided into two continents, America on one side, Europe on the other, and between them, the fire that never sleeps. In Reykjanes, geological faults cut the landscape like open scars. Each eruption redraws the horizon and gives birth to new lava fields. In 2021, the Fagradalsfjall volcano awakened after 8 centuries of silence. The lava flowed gently, as if the ground itself were exhaling light. The Icelanders, accustomed to living with fire beneath their feet, call this phenomenon the breathing of the earth. And perhaps they are right. Because here, the volcano does not destroy. It creates, shapes mountains, gives birth to new islands, and fertilizes the soil with minerals that sustain life. When magma meets the sea, the spectacle is beyond words. The water boils, the steam rises, and the ocean glows in tones of red and gold. In just a few minutes, the solidification of basalt creates new land. It is creation unfolding before our eyes. On average, Iceland grows about 2 centimeters per year. It seems like little, but on a geological scale, it is the blink of an eye. Every centimeter is proof that the planet is still in motion, and while the surface reshapes, the surrounding waters boil with life. Fish, crustaceans, and seabirds feed near volcanic areas where the heat draws nutrients. Warm currents rise, cold ones descend, and nature creates its own balance. Here, destruction and creation are the very same force. And when the day comes to an end, the landscape seems to breathe along with the sea. Columns of steam blend into the wind, and the horizon glows as if the Creator had just passed through. In the North Atlantic, the boundary between fire and ocean is also the boundary between the visible and the divine. In the shadows of the depths, the lava cools into rounded forms, pillow lavas. Each solidified bubble records the moment when fire touched the ocean's salt. Beneath the steam, sulfur paints the air yellow, and the newborn rock still exhales heat. Here, creation has no past, only the present. When fire becomes stone, the landscape changes. The heat fades, the glow turns into form, and what once flowed like liquid light now rises as a wall. They are columns, endless and perfect, driven into the very heart of the North Atlantic. These formations, known as basalt columns, are born when lava cools slowly. As it loses heat, the rock contracts and fractures into nearly identical hexagonal prisms. The result is a pattern that seems architectural, yet was sculpted only by time, pressure, and patience. Across Iceland, these columns multiply like natural temples. In the Sturlugil Canyon, they rise in perfect rows over turquoise waters. At Kirkjufell, they form steps that shape one of the most photographed mountains on the planet. And at Svartifoss, the Black Cascade descends like an organ made of stone. Basalt geometry is so precise that it has inspired engineers and architects. Many believe its symmetry served as a foundation for ancient structures such as Greek temples or for the Roman columns used in cathedrals and palaces. But here, they were not built, they were created. Basalt covers about 70% of the Earth's crust. It is the most abundant rock on the planet, forming the floor of all the oceans. Every continent rests upon it, as if laid upon the heart of fire. And when time sculpts it into columns, what we see is the planet itself revealing its inner architecture. Scientists study the cooling rate of lava to understand the shape of each fissure. The width of the prisms reveals the rhythm of the cold. The faster the cooling, the smaller the columns. The slower, the larger and more elegant they become. It is as if the Earth were breathing in cadence, shaping every detail with divine precision. And if the wonders of the North Atlantic are also enchanting you, take your phone and comment the secret word of this documentary: rock. Just that. It is the way to show that you felt the same as we did. Rock. These mineral cathedrals have endured for thousands of years. They were shaped by ice, by wind, and by the relentless force of the waters. And even when winter covers everything in white, they remain there, standing like guardians, silent witnesses to the passage of time. In their intervals, vegetation grows between the cracks. Small mosses and lichens colonize the rock, beginning a new cycle of life. It is a subtle reminder that even in stone, life finds a way. And that creation never repeats itself. It reinvents itself. When the sun sets over Sturlugil, the light touches the columns, and the basalt glows like liquid gold. It is the hour when silence finds its voice. Water flows, the wind murmurs, and the sound echoes through the entire throat of the canyon. It is as if the Creator had left there the signature of a world still under construction. And it is in this landscape that the North Atlantic reveals another of its secrets. Under the weight of cold and the force of the wind, the ice begins to move. Slowly, it advances, carving valleys and rivers until it turns rock into mirror. The temperature drops, the sound of the wind changes, and the landscape fades beneath the light of winter. The Earth seems to fall asleep, but it is only preparing for the next act. The realm of ice draws near, bringing with it the stillness and the beauty that only cold can sculpt. Silence dominates the landscape, and the cold takes shape. In the North Atlantic, water ceases to be fluid to become structure. Each drop turns into crystal, each lake into a mirror. It is the kingdom of ice. Iceland holds the second largest ice cap in Europe, Vatnajökull, a massive ice that covers more than 8,000 square kilometers, thick enough to hide entire volcanoes. There the ice moves, as if it had a will of its own. It slides slowly, carving valleys, rivers, and canyons. When the sun touches the ice, the surface shines like glass. It is a reflection that deceives the eye. Sky and earth merge, and for an instant it feels as if the whole world becomes one. It is the frozen harmony of creation. But even ice is not eternal. With every summer, the glaciers retreat a little more, reminding us that everything that exists is in transformation. Even so, there is something divine in watching them endure, defying time, as if the Creator had left within them the mark of His patience. Beneath the sound of the wind, the North Atlantic remains still, but in the silence of the ice, the earth still speaks. In lands that boil beneath the ice, life finds a new way to exist. Where cold reigns, fire creates invisible refuges, and even on the harshest edges of the North Atlantic, there is enough warmth to sustain the impossible. Ledmanaloga, a multicolored valley surrounded by rhyolite mountains. Here the ground seems to smoke, the stones glow in shades of red, ochre and yellow. It is the point where ice and fire touch, and the air feels charged with energy. Every step is like walking upon the heart of the earth. The hot water that springs from beneath the ground reaches temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. Even so, microorganisms live there. They feed on sulfur, iron, and silica, surviving in environments that would be fatal to any other form of life. They are the extremophiles, the creatures of the edge. These microscopic beings are studied by biologists all over the world. They represent living proof that life can arise, even under hostile conditions. Their enzymes withstand heat, radiation, and even acidity. They are, in essence, the purest reflection of the persistence of creation. At Lake Maivatn, where the waters steam and the ground moves, the colors seem unreal. The deep blue of the water, the yellow of the sulfur, the white of the vapor, form a landscape that looks like a dream. But it is real, and it pulses. At Veria, the craters boil like ancient cauldrons. The sound of escaping gas blends with the wind, forming a subterranean chorus. There, the ground does not sleep. It breathes, and every breath is a reminder of the power that still burns beneath our feet. These hot springs inspired NASA scientists to test technologies for future missions to Mars, because the chemistry here is similar to that of other worlds. If life exists in these earthly abysses, then it may also exist beneath Martian glaciers. Iceland is a natural laboratory of creation. But there is something not even science can explain. Why do these places, even covered in sulfur and steam, transmit such deep peace? Perhaps because they remind us that life does not need to be perfect to be sacred. Here, the Creator seems to sign the impossible with ink of fire and breath of life. The combination of steam, sulfur, and silence creates a unique sensation, as if time itself stood still. The landscape moves in slow motion. Each drop that evaporates, each stone that cracks, is a reminder that nothing is static. Everything changes. Everything is reborn. Under the glow of dusk, the steam from the springs blends with the clouds. Heat rises, light spreads, and the horizon seems to breathe. It is as if the Creator, with an invisible touch, kept alive the flame that makes the planet live. Life always finds a way. And as night falls over the steaming valley, the sound of the hot waters blends with the distant echo of the sea. It is the same rhythm, the same pulse. The North Atlantic speaks once more in a low voice, reminding us that fire and life still dance together. Before we continue, check if you are already subscribed here on the channel Our Planet. That is how YouTube calls you back. Whenever a new documentary reveals the wonders of the earth and of creation. Now let us go on, because the North Atlantic still holds secrets. At the far edge of the North Atlantic, where the wind never rests, life endures. These are lands shaped by cold, by waves that roar, and by winds that cross centuries. Even so, there are those who call this place home. The islands of the wind are a refuge for thousands of migratory birds. Among them, the puffin, a small bird with a colorful beak known as the sea parrot. They spend almost their entire lives over the ocean, but return to the coast only once a year, to fulfill the ritual of life, to build a nest and begin again. These nests are dug into cliffs and damp rocks. Inside them, a single egg. Both parents take turns incubating it for about 40 days, and when the chick is born, it is fed with small fish caught at sea, one by one, until it is ready to fly alone over the Atlantic. The colonies can exceed tens of thousands of birds. The sound is deafening. Gulls, fulmars and skuas compete for space and food, but there is an invisible order, a balance maintained by nature itself. Here, the wind sets the rules, and survival is the only law. Grey seals rest on the wet rocks. They dive for up to 20 minutes in search of fish and return to the surface in silence. When the sun touches the horizon, they line up side by side, as if sharing the same thought, to wait for the right tide. A simple gesture that reveals ancient wisdom. Across the frozen plains, the reindeer follow their own crossing. They are migratory, capable of traveling more than 1,000 kilometers each season. They navigate by the Earth's magnetic field, crossing winds, mountains, and snow. The herd moves as a single body in search of food and shelter. During summer, the tundra awakens. Flowers blanket the ground, birds return, and the silence is broken by the sound of thousands of wings. It is the celebration of life at the edge. Each species, each movement, is part of an invisible symphony that keeps the world in balance. But the wind is the true inhabitant of these islands. It never stops. It passes through cliffs, villages, and seas, carrying the stories of birds that have crossed oceans, and perhaps now it is blowing there, where you are watching. Tell us in the comments which city or country you are watching from. It is your way of showing us that the wind of the Atlantic has reached you too, and that in some way we are all connected by the same planet, our planet. These birds travel thousands of kilometers, yet they always return to the same place. It is an instinct, a calling that not even time can erase. And perhaps we are like that as well, always returning to our origins where the world still speaks, and creation whispers your name. When the wind grows calm, the sea reflects the sky. Clouds drift slowly and the landscape seems to breathe. It is the interval between two forces, calm and storm. And in this brief instant, everything seems possible. On the islands of the wind, life is not only resistance, it is poetry in motion. Every flight, every dive, every breath is a gesture that defies the impossible. The North Atlantic remains alive, and the Creator continues writing his work upon the wings of the wind. When night falls over the North Atlantic, the sky turns into a spectacle. Rays of green, purple, and blue light dance on the horizon, like living veils moving in rhythm with the solar wind. It is the Northern Lights, an encounter between the sky and the Earth's electricity. The phenomenon is born at 90 kilometers of altitude, when particles from the sun collide with the Earth's atmosphere. The planet's magnetic field deflects these particles, creating waves of light that move like liquid fire. It is the most visible form of the invisible. Each color of the aurora has an origin. Green comes from oxygen, blue from nitrogen, red from extreme energy, and together they paint the sky as if the Creator were drawing, with light and silence. On clear nights, the auroras blanket all of Iceland and part of Greenland. Local guides claim that each appearance has a voice, a low, almost inaudible sound, like an electric whisper. Scientists still debate whether it truly exists, or if the human mind is trying to hear the miracle. Ancient Norse legends said the lights were the reflection of the gods' swords. For other peoples, they were souls dancing in the sky. Today, we know they are charged particles, but the enchantment remains the same. Science explains, but mystery endures. Travelers who seek the aurora know it is never guaranteed. It may appear for seconds or last through the entire night. It all depends on the solar wind, the clouds, and the silence of the sky. But when it appears, no one remains the same. Photographers wait for hours in sub-zero temperatures with cameras pointed to the north. And when the first line of light crosses the horizon, time seems to stop. No image, no record is able to translate what is felt. Only the heart understands. The aurora is more than a phenomenon. It is a reminder that we live beneath a living sky, powered by energy and motion. And perhaps, with every illuminated night, the Creator quietly shows us that light always overcomes darkness. And when the glow fades, silence returns. The sky darkens, but something within those who witnessed it remains lit. It is the spark of an encounter between the cosmos and the soul. After the light comes the silence. The landscape falls asleep beneath the fading aurora. The wind slows, and even the sea seems to breathe slowly. Here, time stops running. It simply exists. Across the plains of Iceland, transparent rivers cut through the fields like veins of crystal. At Brúará, water rises from beneath the ground, cold and pure, forming gentle cascades that multiply among lava rocks. Each fall is a note of the same silence. Farther ahead, at Ramphosar, hundreds of small springs flow from a black wall. They do not come from the top, but from within the rock. It is melted ice traveling for kilometers underground until it finds the light once again, an invisible cycle that never ceases. These waters are so pure that they reflect the sky with mirror-like clarity. Scientists estimate that the underground melt takes centuries to reach the surface. What flows now is the same snow that fell when Iceland was still young. Time runs in silence. Along the shores, mosses and lichens spread across the stones. They are the first colonizers of the earth, capable of turning rock into soil. They grow millimeter by millimeter in cycles that last for generations. What to us seems like stillness is only another form of movement. Here everything is slow. Shadows stretch, water repeats its course, and the wind blends with the breath of the planet. Hurry disappears. Time ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a witness. Perhaps this is what the Atlantic teaches, that strength is not in speed, but in permanence. That there is wisdom in letting things follow their own rhythm, because even silence needs time to be heard, and in that interval, the earth speaks softly. Scientists call this geological time. Thousands of years condensed into a single instant. Mountains are born, rivers change their course, and the ocean advances as if everything were part of one deep breath. Creation has never stopped. And when the day comes to an end, the waters of Hraunfossar fade beneath the twilight. The sound of the falls slowly disappears until only the wind remains. It is the echo of time, reminding us that even silence is part of life. When fire and ice unite, the result is life. The North Atlantic is the point where the energy from the Earth's interior meets the frozen vastness of the ocean. Here, heat creates movement and cold gives form. It is the alchemy of creation. Ocean currents are born from these temperature differences. Warm water rises from the south, cold water descends from the north. This constant back and forth moves nutrients, oxygen, and life. Without it, the oceans would be deserts. Amid these currents, cold water reefs take shape. Unlike tropical reefs, they extend hundreds of meters into the depths. Hard corals, sponges, and anemones grow in silence in the shadows of the Atlantic. They are invisible gardens supporting an entire food chain. These reefs shelter thousands of species, small crustaceans, fish that hunt in the twilight, and translucent creatures that seem made of glass. Many of these beings have never been seen by science. They live in temperatures close to freezing, feeding on microorganisms carried by the currents. And everything is connected. Whales feed on the shoals formed by the nutrients of these reefs. Birds dive where the ocean renews itself, and seals hunt in the same waters where underground fire warms the sea. Each element depends on the other. It is an invisible cycle that keeps the planet in balance. Oceanographers call this the thermohaline system, a network of currents that moves the entire ocean as if it were a living organism. Without it, the waters would stop circulating and the Earth's climate would change forever. Every wave that touches the shore is the pulse of this blue heart. That is why every detail matters. The North Atlantic is more than a sea. It is a breathing system, a link between all the planet's ecosystems. And while fire warms the depths, life flourishes at the surface. From the invisible, the essential is born. And if this journey has touched you in any way, leave your like now. It is a simple gesture, but it helps YouTube take our documentaries to more people discovering the extraordinary around the world. Here, cold reefs and ocean currents form what scientists call the nursery of the Atlantic. It is where life is born, grows, and returns. Every cycle, every breath, is the legacy that the sea and fire have left to Earth. And within this delicate balance, creation continues. There are places where science falls silent and silence becomes the answer. The North Atlantic is one of them, an encounter between fire and ice, life and emptiness, light and shadow. Here, the planet is still being written. With every eruption, with every thaw, the earth is reborn. The forces that once created the world remain in motion. Fire shapes, ice preserves, and the ocean connects everything. It is the cycle of creation that never ends. Scientists call it a phenomenon, poets a miracle. But perhaps they are the same thing, because with every spark, with every breaking wave, the earth seems to remember who made it. And when the sun rises over Reykjavik, the city awakens upon ground that still breathes. Beneath the feet of the Icelanders, fire and ice continue to dance. And we simply watch creation in real time, a planet that never stopped being born. This is our planet. Because the mystery of creation is still before us. In the sounds the wind carries, in the lights that cross the sky, in the waters that never cease to move, everything is still being made. And before the next destination, check if you are already subscribed here on the channel, Our Planet. This ensures that YouTube shows you every new documentary and that you keep traveling with us through the most extraordinary destinations in the world. While the north falls silent beneath the ice, in the south, life awakens in color and warmth. Where the ocean kisses the savanna and the Creator reveals another face of the earth. Click now on your screen and continue the journey to the next episode, The Wonders of South Africa, a place where the Creator traded the cold for the flame of life. I will be waiting for you there. Stay with me and discover the extraordinary around the world. A warm embrace, and until the next journey.